government's big commitment to boost infrastructure, privatize public sector companies and no new COVID or wealth tax have grabbed most of the budget 2021 headlines. On the Property Show, we take a look at the union budget from a different lens and ask, is the government allocating enough resources to make India's cities more livable? After all, having a great home can boost your quality of life, but if the air you breathe remains polluted and surroundings unclean, your quality of life is far from ideal. Welcome everyone, I'm Niranjan. Before we kickstart our discussion today, here's a quick snippet from the press conference held by Durga Shankar Mishra, Secretary, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs.
जल जीवन मिशन हमारी एक नई योजना, उसकी सब्सिक्वेंट योजना के तौर पे यारी और एक बहुत बड़ी योजना है जिसमें पूरे देश के सारे शहरों को लिया जाएगा। और इस मिशन का हमारा मेजर फोकस होगा जल संरक्षण होगा, मेकिंग द सिटीज वाटर सिक्योर, प्रोवाइडिंग ड्रिंक फ्रॉम टैप, सीधे आप टैप से पानी पी सकते हैं, ये हर एक शहर को करना होगा। अगले 5 साल के लिए स्वच्छ भारत मिशन 2.0 के लिए एक नया मिशन जो है, इसका भी कल माननीय वित्त मंत्री ने अनाउंस किया और बहुत जल्दी हम इसको अप्रूव करके गाइडलाइंस इसकी जारी करेंगे। जो तीसरा अनाउंसमेंट हुआ है वो भी एक बहुत बड़ा मैसिव अनाउंसमेंट है। ये अनाउंसमेंट हमारा है सिटी बस ऑगमेंटेशन। अब ये हमारा उनको बस को ऑगमेंट करने के लिए करीब 20,000 सिटी बस खरीदने का प्रोग्राम है। मेट्रो लाइट एंड मेट्रो न्यू, आपको पता होगा, मेट्रो लाइट एंड मेट्रो न्यू ऑलरेडी हमारे यहाँ प्रपोजल, मेट्रो न्यू का प्रपोजल आ चुका है नासिक शहर के लिए। ये एक इकोनॉमिक अपलिफ्टमेंट के लिए, पूरे शहर के इकोनॉमिक इंप्रूवमेंट के लिए बहुत बड़ा मेजर स्टेप होगा।
Secretary there laying out the budget allocations, but are these enough for improving urban infrastructure? Let me find out from my guests today who are joining me. Niranjan Hiranandani, who's the MD and founder of Hiranandani Group. And we also have with us Karuna Gopal, President of Foundation for Futuristic Cities. Dikshu Kukreja also with us, Principal Architect and Urban Designer at CP Kukreja Architects. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining me. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Hiranandani. Swachh Bharat Mission, Jal Jeevan Mission, Metro Light, Metro Neo, 18,000 crore rupees set aside for public transport, 2,000 plus crore for air pollution. Has the budget done enough, or you still feel it's too little to boost the quality of life in cities?
Thank you very much, Manisha, for having me for this program. My heart goes out to the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister for the budget which has come. It's a new budget. It's a completely changed budget. When I first heard all the infrastructure statements that were there regarding health, infrastructure, roads, sports, etc., all combined together, I presume there would be more taxes. But however, there was a disinvestment program, an IPO program, and other raising of funds, which actually was different, so no new taxes were levied. Now, looking into this context with what I will dare, I would say yes. The answer is that certainly more can be done in many of the things that have been proposed, and it can be wider and bigger and better, and people deserve it. But I can say that under the circumstances, maybe I would consider it quite enough. But let's look at some of the missions that you talked about. The Jal Jeevan mission, what is the aspiration? How much will be done? If more were allocated this year, I think we would have got much bigger aspiration to be completed earlier. So I think that is the important, because ultimately the Prime Minister wants to reach every single person and all the other things. And the total budget is 2,87,000 crores. So I think that thing, two things combined, is certainly a good aspiration model.
Good aspiration model. In fact, Karuna, I'm going to come to you. We've had multiple discussion. You know, in 2014 itself, the Prime Minister announced both Swachh Bharat and Smart City missions with a lot of personal attention and fanfare. And now you add the budget allocations. If I look at the numbers of CMIE, 2014-15, the ministry got 11,000 crore. Today, in this latest union budget, the ministry's got 50,000 plus crore. What's your take on how we progressed so far?
Well, it's as you know, the mission itself is a fairly complex and complicated mission given India's urban, let's say, scenario. Our cities have multiple layers of problems. We have complex problems. So given that, I would assume that we made a good beginning, and we are cleaning up the system, and I think the cities will be in a better position to, adopt technologies and absorb the investments that are coming, our way. Manisha, quickly to talk about the budget itself. Earlier budgets, I have always thought that infrastructure investments and, basically the outlays have been in a siloed fashion. Give outlays for infrastructure, metro, water, etc. But this time, I find that the budget somehow addressed a very wholesome performance of cities. And let me quickly explain why I think it is true. Cities become performing cities only when citizens living in those cities are healthy. So unfortunately, our Indian cities, Manisha, which is very important and not many people really know about it, have what we call as a triple disease burden. Like our cities, people like some of us living here, we have infectious diseases, we have non-communicable diseases, and we have accidents. All the three have pulled down the performance of people in cities. Even the elite could not give their best. We really couldn't maximize the performance of people. But this budget so brilliantly addresses that. If you find infectious diseases, that's because of lack of water, because of lack of drainage and sewerage, is because lack of good housing for people and clean air. Now, all these things have been very beautifully addressed in the budget. And I also think that it has incorporated past learning. For instance, proposing metros for smaller cities has been a failure. So this time they incorporated a bit of learning. And prioritization, like what India needs right now, has also been done quite well. So my guess is that this budget looks at wholesome development of cities from both the physical infrastructure and the human capital and the performance of people. Interestingly, Manisha, we were told that a city, if you live in a city and if your BMI, the biomass index is 25, you're a perfectly performing individual. Okay. So all these, perhaps if implemented very well, will ensure that all of us touch the BMI of 25 and we become productive individuals, and our GDP contribution to cities increases, and therefore we will, as a country, will touch $5 trillion.
Karuna, I think you've pointed out very well. For the first time, I think everything has come together because of the focus on health itself and bringing all, whether it's, Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0 and the water in every household, everything together comes to just improve our health and well-being and make us more productive as a nation. Dikshu, come in here. What's your own take in terms of how these missions have panned out so far? I know with so much fanfare we launched Swachh Bharat. Some amount of cleanliness I do see, but people tend to slack back. And I'm looking at some of the numbers and saying, we have 17 of the 20 fastest growing cities in India, and we can't be slow on this. We really have to press the pedal on livability.
Yeah, Manisha, we not just live and breathe in a city, but as an urban designer, I actually live and breathe for the city. I have to say at the outset that I really compliment what the finance minister has come out with, raised the concerns and taken the initiatives to improving the condition of our cities, because as they say, cities are the engine of growth. But I want to point out another issue here. Over the years, recent years in particular, we've been seeing a lot of initiatives coming towards, like you said, about Swachh Bharat Mission 1, smart cities, et cetera, But where I feel there is still a problem is really lies in the implementation. The intentions are very noble and very well appreciated. But down on the ground, at ground zero, when you see the implementation of all these policies is not taking the shape that it really should have with the kind of money being invested. And I feel that the reason for that is, one, that somewhere in terms of the implementing agencies, there's a hesitancy, there's not that enthusiasm for the drive, they lack imagination and the willpower to make it happen. And these things eventually for a common man like us becomes very frustrating because you hear the budget, you celebrate, but then you see that the condition of the city hardly improves. And definitely it's a need of the hour. So there I agree with it. But I think there is need to also think about how to make it more effective implementation.
I think you've really
Not
put the
about
finger on the big problem. I'll come back to you, Dikshu. Mr. Hiranandani, I mean, the budget talks about Metro Light and Neo Metro for smaller cities, but look at Mumbai Metro itself. It's mired in controversies. It's delayed beyond, the number of years. I don't even know. I've stopped counting on the number of years it's got delayed by. Just at the ground level, the center does a lot, but our urban local bodies, their capacity to implement and for us to take on large infrastructure projects, there's many a slip between the cup and the lip, isn't it?
Manisha, you're 100% right. And I think that the panelist also is really saying the truth that we have to see execution. We have to see how these things affect on the ground and actually the benefit to the common man. So I think that's an issue which we have felt all the time. The exceptions, of course, being what Mr. Gadkari is doing in the case of national highways, which has seen a rapid increase right up to 30 kilometers of national highways per day. But what you're seeing at the local level is, a slip up on the implementation and difficulty which are there. So while we have 300 kilometers of metro being worked on in the Mumbai region, and we have the Cross Harbour Bridge and the Coastal Road, we do see that, like for instance, the Cross Harbour Road is almost on time in spite of the COVID. But the metro, as you said correctly, is squared into controversy in relating to the depot and other things and all. So I think there are lots of issues on the ground in terms of execution. But the best part is, I think the focus from the central government, from the ministry, housing, as well as the finance ministry, I think the focus on improving urban mobility is very clear and correct. So I think we need to complement that part of it. Number two, the budgets in each of these segments is pretty high. So I think that has happened, but I wish they would have had still more in each year, which we have talked about, because most of the budgets which she has given has a 5-year program. And obviously the amounts look very large. For example, Jal Jeevan Mission, we are talking about 2,87,000 crores. The Swachh Bharat Mission, we are talking about 2 lakh crores, or 1,41,000 crores, and so on and so forth. But when you actually get down to see how much of it will be put into the ground in this year, it's a big question mark and usually cannot be related. So that's the problem that we have. But good that the vision and foresight is definitely there in terms of the activity.
All right, Mr. Hiranandani and the rest of the panelists, please hold your thought. I think another very important aspect that I'd like to discuss when we come back is rental housing for migrant laborers, those grim pictures and memories of what happened to that community, which actually builds our homes. It still haunts all of us. And air pollution. I mean, do we really need to make headlines being the dirtiest cities of the world? And is 2,000 crore enough? We come back and discuss that. Stay with us. You're watching the Union Budget 2021 special on the Property Show, and we're looking at the allocations made and tax breaks given to improve the quality of life in India's cities, or basically to the Urban Affairs Ministry. A city has to be inclusive, we know that, and a city also has to have clean air for everyone. Karuna Gopal, you spoke about the fact that you saw a holistic focus on health and development. Having said that, everyone is talking about that 2,000 crore figure for air pollution and saying this is simply not enough. Looking at the fact that, we have a majority of the dirtiest air cities in the world. Do you think that we could have done better on that front, and maybe a better concerted plan as well?
It's less about allocation, Manisha. It's more about how innovative we get in cleaning up the air. around the world, they have experimented, other cities have experimented with not just smog towers that Delhi is trying to put up, but other cities like in Paris, they have, tall towers with green buildings, then rooftop gardens, urban forestry, incentivizing, gardens at home, white, coating your rooftops white, because every building, if it is white, can also be, less energy consuming and also therefore, less polluting. So there are many ways to do these interesting things. It's not just about the outlays. Now, for instance, your building, demolition and construction waste also is being managed well. I see that. So obviously that pulls down the air pollution. My take is basically if the policies around these, let's say, initiatives are very good, then things will really start working the way we want.
So what you're saying, Karuna, is that it's not about the budget, it's about the policy, and then getting everybody to follow those policies, I think, is the big one. We do. All right, I'm going to bring in Dikshu here. Dikshu, it's close to the heart for everybody from the capital. Air pollution, though I must say Mumbai is not far behind and other cities are catching up. What do you think we can do better? I mean, is there a citizen responsibility and civil society responsibility here as well?
Yeah, on the issue of clean air, I would say that, Manisha, I would like that the government should adopt a carrot and stick approach. And I'll give you examples of it. Right here in Delhi and elsewhere in other cities as well, if you notice, who took the initiative in terms of, crackers, removing crackers? Of course, the Supreme Court came with a mandate, but it was the citizens. It was actually school children who took on that initiative. Similarly, it was with the plastic, removing plastic. So I think somewhere citizen participation is very important. Another example I'll give you is during COVID, there's the policy in the Delhi government that, there's a 2,000 rupee fine if you don't wear your mask. And you see people wearing a mask in Delhi, and in other cities, you don't see it. So here comes the stick approach, which is proving to be successful. And then the government itself, when it came up with the policy of introducing CNG buses, it's made a difference. So I think it is a combination of all these facts. 2,000 crore or 20,000 crores is not going to make a difference. It is money that has to be invested into changing our thought process. It implies that whether a poor man or the richest man of Delhi, we all are ending up breathing the same polluted air. So we all have to make an effort towards it. Just passing the buck is not going to help anybody anymore.
All right. Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani, I know that you wanted to come in on air pollution, but we don't have much time. So I also have a follow-up question on rental housing. Are you going to build now? Now that the IT exemption has been extended to affordable housing meant for rental, will you get into that sector?
Yes, of course I will get into that sector. We do it on the commercial side and we would love to do it on the rental side. We're going to check on the details of that policy and see how it works for everybody. And once we get it fully analyzed, we will certainly execute it. It's a part of our ambition. So certainly we will like to do that completely.
Karuna Gopal, if I was to come and ask you, is there anything that you would have wished for in terms of just improving livability of our cities from the government in the union budget? Has there been a big miss?
Well, I was hoping that there would be a lot of outlay for capacity building. Manisha, the reason why when smart cities outlay was 48,000 crores and nothing really was spent is because of lack of capacities at the municipal level. And not many people working in the municipal system have an idea on how should a city look like? What are the metrics? What are the benchmarks? What is the outcome? What is livability? All these things are just not known to multiple levels of people who work there. So it's very important to train them, build their capacities, and in fact clean up the entire institutions for adoption of technologies, engage with citizens. We don't seem to have a proper triple helix kind of engagement, government working with the private sector and in turn working with citizens and in turn working with educational institutions. Research flows in, startups can be hooked up to, SMEs, MSMEs, then they can be hooked up to bigger companies. It's a very beautiful, virtuous cycle which Indian cities have missed. And that's because there's no capacity.
There's no capacity. I think,
So I was hoping that there would be a lot of investment in the capacity building part.
But I'm not so, I would love to see that too, because really everything trickles down from the center to the state, and from the state to the urban local bodies and authorities who need to train their people to deliver on all that we dream of when it comes to livability and better cities. I'm afraid we've run out of time, but thank you so much, Karuna Gopal, Mr. Niranjan Hiranandani and Dikshu Kukreja. It's a long discussion. Hopefully going forward, we'll break these into smaller pieces and go deeper into each of the topics. For now, I think we can wrap with one confident feeling that cities and quality of life for everyone living in them has been a slightly bigger focus area for the NDA government than it has been for the previous government. If you look at the number of or the amount allocated, the pace of change though depends on many stakeholders, like our panelists said, which includes local authorities, the private sector and citizens, all of them coming together. So hopefully we will see better days. 17 out of the 20th fastest growing cities are Indian. So we have to make sure we do it right. Thank you so much for joining.